Hello and welcome to Equipped. This is episode 4. I'm Aaron Garner.
And I'm Cliff Lansley.
And we're here today to discuss the movie that has just released, and that is Inside Out 2. Cliff, you've been to see it. Who did you go with?
Nobody would go with me. So I ended up taking my two grandchildren. It's rated 12 and above. And I thought, what was the first one like that? And they're 5 and 4. So Kira's 5, Bowen's 4. And so I tempted them with the big tub of popcorn. And we got on the front row and we just got absorbed. So who did you go with?
Excellent. I went with Addison's 9th birthday. So I went with Addison, really wanted to see it. He'd seen the trailers. But he also saw some of the spoilers on YouTube as well. So we were trying to keep him quiet until we'd seen the film. But yeah, so I went with Addison. It's his 9th birthday. I went with my wife, Chantel, and my middle son, Ellis, who's 17, and his girlfriend, Ellie. So yeah, the whole group kind of went.
Talking about spoilers, if you've not seen this, then you're going to get spoilers from us, because we're going to be talking about the film and the content. So the recommendation is go and see it first. Pause the video now. Go and see it first, and come back to this if you want to hear us churn on about it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's unlikely we'll drop huge plot lines, but there will be some elements I think we're definitely going to cross over. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, being in, obviously, an emotional intelligence arena that we work in, it's something that's very close to our hearts. And I know we were both very excited about going to see it. And I wasn't disappointed. You know, I enjoyed it as a film. But what's your initial reaction to Inside Out 2?
Yeah, I had two filters going on. One, enjoying this through the eyes of the grandchildren in terms of are they getting it? And I don't think they did. I think it's not designed for 5-year-olds. So I think more 9-year-olds and upwards. I think because of the complexity of the inner emotions and especially the characters. I mean, there's 10 of them now.
Yeah.
Who can concentrate on 10 characters? Even Enid Blyton, she only has 5 characters in her book, so she's learned. And Inside Out was 5 characters, and I was worried about that. And my worries were well founded, because I had to whisper in their ears, well, what's happening now is, this is this, and what do you think? Do you think that was kind or not kind? And was that no? That wasn't nice. So we were using conversations which weren't really to do with the depth that the writers had created.
Yeah.
So I guess that was one little frustration. The other frustration, I'm starting on the negatives, is it's all about one hockey match. And so in Inside Out 1, we had the parents, we had the school, we had moving house, we had the friendships and the ice skating, and the hockey came into it early on. There were so many plots, but this was just all around one hockey game. And I thought that was a bit lazy of the writers. They could have put a bit more colour in it. So and then the geek was watching it in terms of, hang on a minute, that's not emotion. So the geek inside me was screaming out quietly inside my head that what a shame we've lost. And this is a big plug for Paul Ekman. We've lost Paul Ekman because he was helping the journey with the narrators, but he wasn't active in this sequel. So Daka Keltner and a couple of colleagues were advising. And they got carried away with the 27 emotions as part of the Cohen and Daka Keltner's papers, as we know. So there's a list of 27 emotions that were drawn on by Pete Docter, who was the key architect of the sequel. And I thought, they've lost the essence of what scientists agree on. And that's where Paul Ekman was good in the first one. So it's a shame Paul wasn't involved in the second one, because I think he could have kept it more on piste. So it went off piste in terms of the technicality or the accuracy, if you like, in terms of, and there's different views, as you know, on what is and isn't an emotion, and what's a mood and what's a disorder. And those were going around my head, and not that I'm right or just Ekman's right, but there's dozens of scientists, and it seemed to drift.
I think it was interesting, the take, and as I said, it was primarily around the kind of hockey game, and so I think they were focusing more on acceptance, identity, who I am. So that kind of the concept of self and who Riley is, who am I as a person, and that development and how that was shifting. So I kind of liked that they went in that direction, but it was quite one-dimensional, I suppose, in that aspect. We didn't see lots of other people's areas there, and there was a lot of, I think, confusion around emotion, and then there's a lot of cognitive aspects that came in there as well. So there's a lot of linguistic stuff that came in as well. So they even touched on things like sarcasm, for example. And it's like, it was
sarcasm.
the sarcasm. It was a great play on words. Don't get me wrong, and we may come on to that
and the stream of consciousness with all the food in, because she was thinking about food.
It's a fantastic play on words and those. So there was the humour was great, but certainly the bulk of it was great from a character point of view. My 9-year-old Addison loved it. He enjoyed the characters and the humour and the modelling, the CG. But I think my teenager and his girlfriend certainly had more of an affinity with the plot and the characters than my 9-year-old in this particular one, obviously, because it was around that stage of development. So it was interesting to think about it from that point of view.
Yeah, and if we think back to Inside Out 1 at the end, it was the red light of puberty, and that's where the film ended. And this one picked the ball up there. And that's why, the two other scientific advisors was Lisa D'Amour and Christine Neff. Now, Christine looks at self-compassion, and that's like a sense of self that you talked about. Also, I think she had a good influence in that. And D'Amour, she did a book called The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, and she focuses on 10-year-olds to 20-year-olds. And that's the frame of where Riley is at that stage in her life, just entering into puberty, into those changes. And so that emphasis, it shouldn't have been a shock. We're going to focus on teenagers. So what about the simple stuff? But a little bit too complex for the younger viewers, I think. But I think but your 9-year-old, Addy, does he get the idea of these are emotions inside your head?
He did, but he's seen Inside Out, so he's seen the first one. So he's seen Inside Out, and he loved Inside Out, the original film, and does understand. He's obviously grown up with me as a dad, so a lot of the vocabulary is certainly certainly part of his thinking. But it was interesting because you get to that age of anything over the age of kind of 5, and they're starting trying to do things by themselves. So I think anxiety starts to creep in earlier. So yes, in adolescence you get a lot of anxiety, but that concept of anxiety, I think he understood as well. Things like ennui, envy, and there was a mix-up with envy and jealousy at certain points and stuff as well, and embarrassment. Those things are very
nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
Sticking ahead.
Yeah. So Nostalgia was a really nice character that didn't really play much of a part until later on. But it was definitely an interesting area. But I think in the last episode of this podcast, I mentioned that they'd introduced some new emotions, and I put those in inverted because it's interesting to know, I think we kind of already have had a bit of a chat in the past about these and what an emotion is, what emotion isn't. And we had some of the basic emotions featuring in the original film. And then in this one, they were kind of sidelined or bottled up at the expense of some newbies. So what did you think of the new emotions?
Yeah,
I'm saying emotions.
I know. And if the word feelings would have been used, I think it'd have been okay. Because you can feel bored, you can feel hungry, you can feel sad. But because they use the word emotions, which is a narrower field than feelings, then I think the license they took there was a little bit too wide. Now, did that matter for a 9, 12-year-old viewer? Probably not. No. But is it misteaching? Does the geek in me say this is misteaching? If boredom is a cognitive state, and things like envy. Envy is a plot involving me, someone else, and something you possess that I want. Where jealousy is more aimed at you, the person, for having it. Envy is I want the stuff that you've got, and
you're coveting something.
And that's that's not really an emotion. That's more like a plot involving a couple of characters and some possessions or a quality or a bit of luck you've had or whatever. So I struggle with envy. I struggle with, why pick a French character, Henri, which translates roughly into boredom.
Boredom, disinterest.
Ennui. Yeah. No, that's again a cognitive state. It's something you would think, not something you would feel. So yeah, you can feel bored, but it's too far a stretch.
Yeah.
So that doesn't deserve the label emotion in that sense. Embarrassment is probably an emotion. It's very near to shame. So that's something that can be triggered. We often know what the trigger is for that, and it's a short duration. It happens to us. So all those characteristics of emotions, tick, 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 tick. Embarrassment can squeeze its way in. It's not one of the core emotions that the behaviour emotion theory would suggest, and some of the other theorists, because as we know, there's a piece of research that went across disciplines to work out what do scientists who study emotions agree on. And they agreed on the 5 emotions that went into, great, wonderful.
The ones that went in the bottle we're talking about.
Yeah, the ones in the bottle. So from Inside Out 1. But even, people like Paul Ekman, David Matsumoto and so on added contempt. Paul added contempt and surprise. But scientists disagree on those being universal emotions. So we've got embarrassment, envy, you've got ennui, ennui, boredom. Nah, that doesn't fit.
And anxiety was the next one.
And anxiety, that's a troublesome one, because you've already got fear in there as an emotion, and fear is triggered by dangerousness. Yeah. So something happening that's a threat of harm, and it can trigger the changes, as we know.
But it's a perceived present danger. That's the thing with fear.
In the moment.
Yeah, it's
in the moment. So it's and we could have learned those triggers, or we could have evolved with those triggers, like loss of gravity or big objects moving towards us. So fear, fits really well. Anxiety is not about the present.
No.
So anxiety is about processing things in the future.
For predicting the future, or
prophesizing
almost.
Using past experiences that have been troublesome to predict what might happen in the future, and it's nothing to do with the present moment. So it's more like a rumination, or that anxiety. It can be like a mood. It can be a state. Taken to its extent, it could even be a disorder.
Yeah.
But that kind of differentiation. In fact, I've just pulled this up now. This is Anxious by Joel Ledoux. He's a neuroscientist, and that differentiation between the present moment and the future, he goes into great depth to separate anxiety from fear, and what the difference is. So that was kind of reinforced what I was thinking, because I thought let's have a little dig again. Who's done work on this? Well, he calls his book Anxiety. Anxious. It's called Anxious by Joel Ledoux. So I thought let's have a look at that again, because I've had that book a while. And then that's the way he splits it. Funny enough, I had a direct message on social media saying, you've said it's a bit of a mood, and you put disorder in brackets. It's got to be a disorder, isn't it? It's because it's perpetuating over time. I said, come on, don't forget context here. Yeah. You've got 5 characters. Sadness, they've all got disorders, because sadness looks at the world through a sad lens. Joy looks at it through a happy lens. So all the characters, the context is they're in a movie playing that emotion, and therefore they're all really have a disorder. Yeah.
If you take any of those emotions and you push them out to the point when they're so prevalent in your life that it's hard to function normally, then it's a problem. You can be overly happy. You can have that kind of mania. You can have anxiety as a sort of generalized anxiety disorder, for example. It's in the name, and sadness, depression, so on and so forth. So I think all of the emotions, when they're out of context, when it's not about survival and it becomes just pervasive in your life, then we're into the realms of disorder, and when clinical intervention might be necessary at those points.
That's it. And they were all in the groove. Apart from, do you notice towards the end, Joy became sad?
Yes, that was a really interesting one, because it was so nice to see Joy, and I know it's, from a mixing metaphors point of view, it's confusing, but to see Joy get angry at anger, because anger was having a go at Joy, and then Joy getting angry and then getting sad. It was interesting to see Joy kind of realise that, you know what, there is a place for all of these things, and I'm not always happy. I can't always be this. I try my best to be Joy all the time, and I can't do it. So to see Joy do that breakdown was really, really nice touch, I thought. Weird mixing of metaphors, but it was still a good touch. You can't be happy all the time. No. It was nice.
So you've got those 4 additional characters. You've got the nostalgia, who said, maybe later when we've got more memories. So that might come in Inside Out 3 if there ever is a sequel to the sequel. So you've got the 5 plus the 4. Let's discount nostalgia. So you've really got 9 characters. That's a lot for a child to follow. I was struggling, who's what now.
Yeah.
So to have 9 characters, because the working memory can only cope with about 7 bits of information.
Yeah.
Put that on a child, even a 10, 12-year-old, have they overstretched, or am I underestimating children?
That Addison did afterwards. So I tested this to an extent. We're doing the checks of working memory, and he liked all of the characters. But I think part of that is he already knew some of them. Right. So if you've seen the first movie, you've essentially chunked the basic emotions. So you've got the basic emotions and then 4 new characters, which gives you 5. You've got the chunk of the basics and then 4 new ones. And again, emotions. We'll call them emotions because that's what they call them. But yeah, it was interesting to see that. I think Addison followed it, and he was my kind of benchmark because he was the youngest person in the group of people that watched it for sure. And everyone enjoyed it for different reasons. Some people can kind of empathise with all of those emotions. There were some sad bits. There were some tears from me and Addison. Coming back to my confession on previous podcasts about crying in movies, I definitely had a few tears.
Which bit?
I actually, when Joy did the breakdown thing, I felt bad for Joy having to be, having to feel like that Joy had to be joyful all the time in that kind of breakdown. But that was less sad and more about like, yes, kind of, I'm with you. There was a few well-up points there, but I think it didn't have the heartstring pulling that happened to me in the first one for sure, with the imaginary friend that went to the
Bing
memory
Bong.
Bing Bong, that's it.
Sadness
I lost it on the first one for sure.
Me too.
But it was interesting, and there was a few different points where I was like, not sure. Envy and jealousy, definitely they mixed that up. So there was the envy and jealousy was the same thing in the film. And as you've mentioned already, it's not, where you've got one like envy, which is about coveting something that you want someone else has, whereas jealousy is that casting characters more directed towards a person and a loss of a potential relationship or something like that. So I felt that there was a bit of misinformation in the envy and jealousy piece. And anxiety, I wasn't sure about. I thought they could have made more about fear, because you already had fear. So in my mind, could you have done something with like fear losing control in some way? To my mind, I thought it might have been better not to have anxiety as a separate thing, but to have fear kind of evolve in some way. To fear is not only reacting to in the moment, but fear is now responding to what might happen, like anxiety's character did. But could they have made something more about fear? Because fear and anxiety are essentially the same thing, but one is present, one is thinking about the future and feeling fearful over it. So it's still fear related. So would it not have been better and reduce the character count to have seen fear go off the rails and become anxiety? In my mind, that might have been a little bit closer.
I want to like that.
You wouldn't like? Why wouldn't you like that?
Because I see it as two distinct things. So I think that's morphing it too much for me. Anxiety, use the word, I plan for the future. So there's a little quote that I caught, and because I'm like there, no phones in the cinema, but I've got a little phone here, capture. I need to capture that, not record it, but I was just typing in the notes, But something about
type in notes.
I sense danger. Danger that's likely or whatever. I'm paraphrasing now, but the second part of this was I plan for the future. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is well, what if the plane crashes? What if there's a traffic jam and we don't make the airport in time?
Yeah.
It's about so that anxiety is usually about expectations that could or could not be well founded.
Yeah.
And obviously they can be taken to a disorder level. So I think I had a clear little space, a vacuum between the future and the present that would mix in those characters or giving fear a bit of anxiety. I think I would have pushed back on that.
So I see that's a valid point with the way we define emotions, moods, and then traits and disorders. So when we split those things up, so emotion being that very much it's a threat of harm, I'm going to react to that. Whereas if you were in a fearful mood, then that would be kind of apprehensive.
Or anxious.
Well, anxiety is a disorder, but you could be apprehensive, which would also be fearful. You could be in more of an apprehensive mood, I suppose. I don't know, could you have a trait for, so that would be like you perpetually fearful, timid, those kind of things. But there's that definition. For me, and I see your point as well, for me, I would like to have seen fear morph in some way, but that's my own
don't
plot
forget
line. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to fight against Pixar writers.
No. Well, because these are words. They're English words as well. I mean, people who are using English as a first language, and then we in terms of the French translation is slightly different from the English interpretation, and so these are just words, and so it's very easy to get a little bit a little bit drawn in too much on they're not emotions, they're words representing something that has been defined by scientists and book writers into these categories. So we've got to be careful we don't get over geeky on the back of a single descriptor.
But the ennui stuff is, I think it is a state of
I love the character.
The character's fantastic. Just and having teenagers,
whatever,
just seeing that like with the mobile phone and those kinds of things. I mean, when I was a teenager, I didn't have a mobile phone, so I couldn't do that. But it was it was great to see that characterization. And we're stereotyping a bit. Not all teenagers like that. Just saying.
Well, do you know one that isn't?
Valid point. So no, not all teenagers are that disinterested, but it is interesting in that socialization point of view, what causes that level of boredom and disinterest. And I think this plays a lot into what we talk about when we talk about education and emotional intelligence in various different things, because adults can be disinterested and have apathy as well. So it's interesting to think about these characters and think, okay, but if you have a teenager that is disinterested, has some level of apathy towards everything or life or whatever, anything an adult wants to talk about, it's interesting to think, like, how can you get them interested? If you've got a teenager like that, like what would you do? What would you do? I mean, you've got ennui laying on the sofa, and you're like, come on.
You use psychology. You trick them, reverse psychology. There's no way you could do it. Yeah, we've all done it. That brings me to another one. I was surprised that they didn't use more of the contempt primary emotion in a teenager, because you get a lot of that from a teenager. Because my parents' carers didn't know anything until I was 21. Then my goodness, they've learnt a lot in those 5 years. So that almost contemptuous behaviour, I think, was missed out on. That I've experienced with. I've had 3 lads who come through that process, and that stage of boredom and parents are a nuisance and you're embarrassing me and all that stuff. But contempt, I thought.
So you're talking contempt as in superiority of I know better than you.
I know, yeah.
Even though, so
my values, principles, and whether it's the green planet, whether it's what you should eat or whatever. Once they start experimenting and getting their own sets of values, and where those conflict with parents or carers, the relatives, those around them, using that then as you're disgusting because you're eating meat, or you support that principle or those politics. So I think contempt was underplayed for that age group, the target age group for the film.
Yeah, but contempt is one of those interesting areas that we talk about as well. So contempt, in order to in order to feel contempt, and we've had conversations previous about that being more, yes, we consider it an emotion, but it does actually require a moral judgment. So there's no way that a newborn baby is going to feel contempt. So is it innate? Probably not. We learn to be contemptuous as we get on, and you have to have a moral judgment. So there has to be
build that,
some level of socialization to know what you're contemptuous about, because it has to be a moral judgment. So you're thinking about something that is beneath you, whether it's a belief system or whatever it might be, or behaviour.
But as we know from our work with schools, our voluntary work, and also with counter-terrorism, the radicalisation process, is hitting children around about 10, 11 as they're moving into the high school arena. And they're starting to develop positions and preferences that sometimes can be dangerous. But it's just the forming that self. That's the bit that got me a little bit, the sense of self. When the emotions were going to fix her at the end, and take that bad sense of self that's all selfish and everything else, and the good sense of self. I am a good person. Which is that little tree that they had in the centre of the programme, and then it came with this red.
I'm not good enough.
Not good enough. That's the flip side. But then they were trying to put the original one back in, and Joy steps in and said, "No, hang on, it's not for the emotions to drive the person. It's up to the person to use what's going on inside her to form her own self." And then they came out with this, and that's where personality wasn't used too much or traits wasn't used as language as much as it could have been, because the little personalities are forming from really young ages. But the personality then came in with a list of, I make mistakes sometimes, but I'm normally a good person. But and then they rattled off about 7 or 8 traits, which were more what Riley was as a person, rather than what the purest emotions would have dictated she should be.
Yeah, because this came from the point of Joy thinking it was a good idea to take all those things that were less positive emotions, experiences, and sent them to the back of the mind. So that kind of repressed element. And then when they all came back, it was almost kind of like Jungian shadow work stuff, you got that concept of, if we really examine who we are, including the stuff we don't really want to think about, we have a better sense of self, because we take all of that element, and we're not just the good stuff, we're all the bad stuff we've learned from as well. There's no such thing as failure or any feedback and all that kind of stuff. So as long as we're learning from those things, and it creates the person we are. There's a lot of bad stuff that's happened to me, and you, there's things we've done. I assume, maybe not to you, but there's not. Oh yeah, definitely never. So there's stuff that regret, maybe not even regret. So there's things that have happened to me that, if I was going back, I probably wouldn't do again. But I don't feel bad about them happening, because they made me think in a different way today, and they make me who I am. So that I like the way they did that, with the concept of, these are all the bad things that we don't like, and we're trying to put them over there. But when we bring them all back in, we end up more of a holistic sense of self than if we just take the good stuff.
Agreed. So
I quite like what they did with that piece. That was nice.
What do you think about the suppressed memory episodes? And talking about the holes in the carpet, and so memories that in that dark.
Oh, the so the dark secrets of the vault, that was in there. That was it. Yeah. So, and we had the things. Yeah, the secrets, which was the character for the cartoon that she used to watch as a kid, but secretly still liked.
Still admires the hero.
And then the deep dark secret for those people that have seen it and didn't stay till after the credits. You won't know what we're talking about if you left early. But yeah, the deep dark secret that came out at the end, which is those things we feel really guilty about. The guilty secrets was interesting. They're bringing the most hidden things, or the guilty things we feel guilty about.
So to save them watching it again, are you going to tell them what the deep dark secret is?
Well, the deep dark secret, for those people that have seen it, again, if you've watched this far, we've given you way too many spoilers, but so it was burning a hole in the carpet, I believe, and peeing in the pool, I think it was.
Yeah, it was peeing somewhere, wasn't it?
Peeing in the pool or something like that.
Peeing in the pool once, that's a big dark secret.
Yeah, so
have you ever peed in the pool?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, why are you embarrassed about that?
I've turned pink, I'm going to pull my hoodie over. So let's move away from peeing in the pool.
I've peed in the pool, stood on the side.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, fun. Yeah.
This is an oversharing episode. Welcome to episode 4. So, is there any other thoughts on that you had as you went through watching Inside Out?
Inside Out. Do you think they're going to make another sequel, Inside Out 3?
No, I don't know.
Because she didn't grow up much in the program, did she? She was still the same age. It was just that one episode in 1 year, the hockey match where the kids are separating for high school. So it's what was she? 11.
She was 13.
13.
Yeah. So I think what you could do,
because love wasn't involved. I thought, boyfriends and girlfriends.
Yeah. So what you could do is you could take, because what we didn't have this one was in the first one we had the mother and the father's emotions that play quite a bit, as you mentioned. So you had Riley, the mum, and the dad. What you could do is so if you're watching, you could do this. I'm speaking to the writers right now.
You're talking to Pete Doctor.
Yeah.
Pete, listen. So, we'll be a scientific advisor.
So what you could do is you could take it into obviously adulthood, and then that relationship element moving there, then moving into having children, and then bring that back in. But then Riley is having to manage the children. That's a lot of characters to manage.
There's probably another 2-3 films that can make
you could manage that. But that would be an interesting one. But it would be a complex way. I wouldn't want to try and write that myself. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm not sure. It was good. I enjoyed it. Probably didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but that might be because I know the characters and I felt the basic emotions were sidelined a bit for the new ones. But
so,
it was nice
out of
to see
10,
the evolution.
if you're a movie buff and you're evaluating Inside Out, 1 out of 10.
Inside Out, 1 out of 10. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5.
Right.
Whereas 2, I would probably give it I'd probably drop it to a 7. I think I enjoyed it, but there was some elements. But that's my geek. I think that's the geek inside me that was like, sarcasm. That's more about linguistics and stuff.
So as good as Toy Story.
Toy Story is a classic. I mean, this is going to turn into a whole movie review if we do this. But yeah, Toy Story is amazing. But I think that's because it was also one of the first of its kind. I think Toy Story. Yeah. So. Yeah, we all love Woody and Buzz.
Yeah, well, I'd have to leave room for a Toy Story. There's a few. So this is probably the 4th, 5th Inside Out 2. I'd agree 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
But I'd go a little bit higher on Inside Out 1. I'd go up at 8.5, 9. Yeah. That's because it was rich. And it's the usual thing. It's
I'm maybe being unfair, but I'm still sticking with my score. So,
yeah.
Subjective and all that. Yeah, subjective judgment. Anyway. I think that's good
to chat.
It's been good to chat.
Start watching it again.
So I assume you've seen it. Hopefully, it'd be interesting to see your views. So make sure you put your views on the film in the comments or anything that we've talked about if you want to comment on it. And we look forward to hearing you. But we will see you on the next episode. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.